Hey guys, hey guys, what's up? Another video with me, Vipin here. Today I'll be focusing on second PU economics, and the second unit that you guys have, that would be human resource development. Now I can't do the entire unit in one video, so I've decided to split it into about three different videos. Firstly, I'll be focusing on population, then poverty, and then the last division of that unit, that would be human health. Okay. Now this unit has got about 18 marks weightage for your final exam. So as you can see, it's a pretty important unit. So let me just get down to the presentation, and I'll go about explaining this concept from uh, from the examination point of view, and from of course the other important things that you must know about this unit as well. Okay, one moment. Yeah. India's population is 1.21 billion, and that's my expression when you hear a number like 1.21 billion. It's not often do you go about seeing a number as big as that. Okay, and being Indians, I'm sure that you would have noticed already how crowded our cities are. Alright, 1.21 billion is an extremely large number. If you look at America, the entire country's population is about 240 million people. 240 million people is barely about 20% of the overall population of this country. So you can see how big we really are. Okay. Now, before I go about telling you why we actually became so dense in terms of population, let's go about seeing some more features of India's population. Right? Population density in India is 382 per square kilometer. Now that's a big number, because if you look at the global average, it's just 46 per square kilometer. If any of you were to walk out of a mall, or if you were to try to find parking space in Bangalore, especially in places like say MG Road or Brigade Road, you really see how many people are there. It's a very, very big number, but it's so difficult for us to realize how many people are actually there. Just to tell you how many people are there in Bangalore alone, okay, Bangalore consists of 80 lakh people. Okay, 80 lakh people is the current population of Bangalore. Okay, if I were to consider the whole of Switzerland, okay, you know, the country that goes about making those really cool watches, Swarovski crystals and other stuff which I don't really need. That country's entire population is little over 3 million people, or little over 30 lakh people, you could say. In fact, Bangalore has exceeded the population of Switzerland by nearly 3 times. So you can see how many people are actually there in terms of population density. Going on, where are these people in terms of the occupation that they take up? Okay, most of India's population continues to remain in the primary sector. When I consider the primary sector, it also includes mining. I don't want to consider mining here. I would mostly like to focus on agriculture. Okay, a large part of India continues to in fact take up the profession of agriculture. Okay, next you have the secondary sector, which is manufacturing. Manufacturing in India is not doing so well. Alright, that's why you see a sudden dip in the number of people in the profession of manufacturing. The reason being, a lot of manufacturing jobs have been taken away in India, and they've all been given away to China. Okay, you even have Indian companies which are choosing to manufacture in China. Companies like, for example, Micromax, although they happen to be Indian companies, they still get their phones manufactured in China. Okay. Other examples, for example, yeah, Standard Fireworks, which is a very, very famous company from Tamil Nadu, known for being one of the biggest sellers of fireworks during Diwali. Even those guys are getting fireworks done in China. It's a little hard to imagine how a place like China happens to be less in terms of manufacturing cost, than compared to a place like Tamil Nadu. Okay, so you can see most of the jobs in fact being taken away from India and in fact being given to China. Then tertiary sector. Tertiary sector here refers to service sector, IT companies, telecom companies, insurance companies, banking, all that comes in the tertiary sector. Tertiary sector also contributes to one of the largest exports from this country. Okay, it's a little weird to imagine services which are a little bit, which are in fact intangible, are in fact part of one of India's biggest exports. I'll explain how services are exported in another unit in economics. You guys anyway have foreign trade. I'll tell you more details about how services are in fact exported. So keep that in mind. Okay. Then measures to control India's population. So what have we been doing in order to control the number of people from spreading like wildfire? Okay, let me be as blunt as possible here. Why does India have such a massive population? Because India's population and unemployment have got an unusual link. Because people don't have jobs, the guy tends to look at his wife and say, "Hey, are you free?" And plus one to the family afterwards. No, that is the truth. In fact, I know it sounds a little funny, but that is the truth. When people are in fact employed, they spend more time at work, and when they spend more time at work, they come back home and they are very tired. And when they are tired, their libido factor or their carnal desires, if you could say, is in fact considerably reduced. Or from your guys' perspective, you could say they're so busy at work, once they come back home, they are no longer able to hoist their flags, if you know what I mean. And they don't really are able to add any plus one to the family. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we have so many people in the country. It's linked to unemployment, in fact. That we are the first country in the world to actually take up a deliberate policy to control the high birth rate. Okay, China did it later in the 1970s and 1979. I think China came out with the one-child policy. We in India started well before that. Okay. During the first 5-year plan, a sum of rupees 65 lakhs was earmarked for this purpose. So we in fact had a separate budget for doing this particular job. Then the third plan emphasis was given on mass propaganda and motivation program in order to make people more conscious about the adverse effects of population growth. Now, many people are under the impression that a large family is in fact a happier family. There are a lot of people who go about giving dumbass reasons saying, uh, my fourth child is in fact a gift of God. Now, that's complete bullshit. It's not like he went out to work and after he came back, there was a beam of light to his doorstep and there was a baby formed right there. No, it isn't that way. A small family is in fact a happier family. There are a lot of people today who have learned that when you don't have kids, your expenses have in fact considerably reduced, and in fact you can in fact have a happier lifestyle, or even in fact a much more improved lifestyle without children. I know it's something which is a little too harsh to accept, but that is in fact the truth. Okay, if you consider children today, they happen to be an additional cost. That is a fact. Because if you look at the current cost of education, if someone were to tell me that joining for LKG or UKG in a private school in Bangalore is going to cost me about a lakh or more, now if I were to hear a number like that, the first thing that would come to my head is I'd rather reconsider having children after hearing those costs. All right, there is in fact a big way to consider the concept of having more and more people in the family. If you're able to deliver the information right and tell people that, look, you need not have more than one or two kids. The reason is as follows: it becomes too expensive. You will find it too difficult to manage your costs. That's a good way to tell people about how they can control the size of their family. Okay. In 1972, the Parliament passed the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, legalizing abortion on demand. I am so happy that in India you have this rule. The reason being, abortion is a very sensitive matter from a religious perspective, and I don't want to consider the religious perspective here. If you have a lady who happened to become pregnant and doesn't want to look after the child for whatever reason it is, one reason could be that she's not ready for it, or another reason could be that it's a little too expensive to look after the kid. You can visit any hospital today in India and you can demand abortion and they will readily do it. You don't have people like what happened in Ireland, wherein this lady needed an abortion because if she hadn't given one, she would have happened to die, and that's unfortunately what happened. You don't have cases like that going on in India. At least I haven't come across a case where a doctor has denied abortion citing religious grounds. So that's a very good thing in the country. You have abortion on demand. Then, in 1976, Government of India announced the National Population Policy. The policy discouraged child marriages and increased the minimum age for girls to 18 and 21 to boys. Now, how does this actually help the country? If I were to come out with rules with particular age groups, all right, let's say for example, if I were to make a rule in Bangalore that says the minimum age for a person to take up drinking is 21, that reduces the number of customers for that particular bar or that particular pub. Now, the same way, if you were to go about making a rule wherein if you increase the minimum age from say 16 to 18 for girls, the number of people getting married and the number of child marriages happening is in fact reduced. And of course, the number of children that could be produced from those marriages is more or less delayed or in fact reduced right away there. And 18 for girls is the year wherein they actually become more mentally mature and they're able to understand things better. And sadly for guys, yes, we are immature until the age of 21. Okay, it's been scientifically proven. It's not my theory about that. Okay, science. Then eventually persuasion replaced compulsion when it comes to getting sterilized. Now, I don't want to get into too much of details in this, but if you've read Nandan Nilekani's book Imagining India, he's given countless examples wherein during the Indira Gandhi regime, you had people who were, they had these camps, like you could say we almost were like the German Nazis, wherein we would in fact kidnap people more or less, and especially for guys afterwards, it used to be just snip, 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 if you know what I mean. Okay. The National Population Policy. The National Population Policy makes school education up to the age of 14 free and compulsory and reduce dropouts. Well, how is education and population related? If you educate people about how population is in fact important and how it goes about affecting your lifestyle, and you are able to convince them that okay, you're able to give them a more sensible perspective of reality and the concept of population towards their own personal lives. Okay, achieve universal immunization for children against all vaccine preventable diseases. Recently, India was went through a case wherein the WHO published a report that said there's been no case of polio in India for the last 5 years. That's a really, really lovely report to hear. Okay, India has been striving a lot, in fact, to make this country rid of that dreaded disease, and so far so good. We have done an outstanding job in that perspective. Okay, then promote delayed marriage for girls not earlier than 18 and preferably 20 years of age. Achieve universal access to information and services for fertility regulation with a wide basket of choices. Now, information related to fertility, prenatal care, postnatal care, that's something which is really, really important. You all heard about how women, especially after they have a child, they suddenly put on weight. Now, there is no, the reason why they actually go about doing that is not because after you have a child, you come across a sudden change in your hormones which compels you to become a pig and you start gobbling down food down your throat. One thing, if you notice in Indian customs, once the lady has in fact delivered a child, she's in fact isolated from the world. When I say isolated from the world, she's more or less kept in a dark room. There is complete lack of exercise. There is no control in her diet. All that is what actually leads to that sudden weight gain, and that in fact is not healthy. You come across so many things like this because and other superstitious beliefs, which has in fact brought down the quality of prenatal care and postnatal care. People need to be educated on how these things actually work. In fact, if a mother has actually delivered a child, she need not be locked up in a room. Okay, it is in fact perfectly fine if she's able to go for a walk, or in fact able to get some physical exercise for herself. It's something which most people don't accept. Moving on. Achieve 100% registration for births and deaths, marriage and pregnancy. We have had a pretty good statistic when it comes to registering births and deaths, marriage and pregnancy as well. Marriage is up to an extent going on quite well in terms of registration. Pregnancy is the one thing which happens to be a little out of control. All right, we need to improve on that. Contain the spread of HIV, AIDS, and STDs. HIV, human immunovirus; AIDS, of course, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome; STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, you guys should really read a lot of articles which have been published in Open magazine that talk about how, in fact, the prostitution racket runs in the country. Many people don't really know the diseases, in fact, which can happen when you have unprotected sex. HIV is not really your biggest concern. There are diseases, according to me, which are far worse than that. Like if you have diseases like gonorrhea, you have diseases like syphilis, they are pretty scary in comparison to HIV. Although this syphilis and gonorrhea are not so fatal, they are pretty scary diseases, according to me. Then, prevent and control communicable diseases. Yes, cholera, typhoid, dysentery, these diseases, or even the common cold. Controlling them is also important for the sake of maintaining human health. Maintaining human health ensures that there is the quality of the population is in fact better. Then, integrate Indian systems of medicine. Like you have, I'm not sure if you heard of this job which is quite common, medical transcription, wherein you have the data of patients which are recorded on one central server. That's something which needs to be implemented in India, because when that is put in place, you have a universal system which is able to tell you the quality of the healthcare and, of course, judge the quality of the population as well. I hope I've made some of the concepts in this clear. Okay, you could come across, in fact, 5-mark questions on the occupation and the distribution of the population in various occupations, 10-mark questions in the policies which I mentioned. Okay, in the next video I'll be talking about poverty. That's in fact important as well, because there are quite a few questions they're going to ask on that. Okay, if you guys have any queries, please leave a comment on the YouTube section. Also, do go about subscribing to my videos. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.